The Big Sleep 1. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning, mid-October, with the sun not shining and a look of hard, wet rain in the clearness of the foothills. I was wearing my powder blue suit and dark blue shirt, tie and display handkerchief, black brogues, black wool socks with black blue clocks on them. I was neat, clean-shaved, and sober. I didn't care who knew it. I was everything the well-dressed private detective ought to be. I was calling on $4 million. The main hallway of the Sternwood place was 2 stories high. Over the entrance doors, which would have let in a troop of Indian elephants, there was a broad stained glass panel showing a knight in dark armor rescuing a lady who was tied to a tree who didn't have any clothes on, but some very long, convenient hair. The knight had pushed the visor of his helmet back to be sociable, and was fiddling with the knots of the ropes that tied the lady to the tree, and not getting anywhere. I stood there and thought that if I lived in that house, I would sooner or later have to climb up there and help him. He didn't seem to be really trying. There were French doors at the back of the hall, beyond them a wide sweep of emerald grass to the white garage, in front of which a slim, dark young chauffeur in shiny black leggings was dusting a maroon Packard convertible. Beyond the garage were some decorative trees trimmed as carefully as poodle dogs. Beyond them a large greenhouse with a dome roof. Then more trees beyond everything, the solid, uneven, comfortable line of the foothills. On the east side of the hall, a free staircase, tile paved, rose to a gallery with a wrought iron railing and another piece of stained glass romance. Large hard chairs with rounded red plush seats were backed into the vacant spaces of the wall round about. They didn't look as if anybody had ever sat in them. In the middle of the west wall, there was an empty fireplace with a brass screen with 4 hinged panels, and over a fireplace a marble mantel with cupids on the corners. Above the mantel there was a large oil portrait, and above the portrait were 2 bullet-torn or moth-eaten cavalry pennants crossed in the glass frame. The portrait was a stiffly posed job of an officer in full regimentals of about the time of the Mexican War. The officer had a neat black imperial, black mustachios, hot, hard, cold black eyes, and a general look of a man it would pay to get along with. I thought this might be General Sternwood's grandfather. It could hardly be the general himself, even though I had heard he was a pretty far gone in years to have a couple of daughters still in the dangerous 20s. I was still staring at the hot black eyes when a door opened far back under the stairs. It wasn't a butler coming back, it was a girl. She was 20 or so, small and delicately put together, but she looked durable. She wore pale blue slacks and they looked well on her. She walked as if she were floating. Her hair was fine, tawny, wave cut, much shorter than the current fashion of page boy tresses, curled in at the bottom. Her eyes were slate gray and had almost no expression when they looked at me. She came over near me and smiled with her mouth, and she had little sharp predatory teeth, as white as fresh orange pith and as shiny as porcelain. They glistened between her thin, too taut lips. Her face lacked color and didn't look too healthy. "Tall, aren't you?" she said. "I didn't mean to be." Her eyes rounded. She was puzzled. She was thinking. I could see, even on that short acquaintance, that thinking was always going to be a bother to her. "Handsome, too," she said, "and I bet you know it." I grunted. "What's her name?" "Riley," I said. "Doghouse Riley." "That's a funny name." She bit her lip and turned her head a little and looked at me along her eyes. Then she lowered her lashes until they almost cuddled her cheeks and slowly raised them again like a theater curtain. I was to get to know that trick that was supposed to make me roll over on my back with all 4 paws in the air. "Are you a prize fighter?" she asked when I didn't. "Not exactly, I'm a sleuth." She tossed her head angrily, and the rich color of it glistened in the rather dim light of the big hall. "You're making fun of me." "Uh-huh." "What?" "Get on with it," I said. "You heard me." "You didn't say anything. You're just a big tease." She put her thumb up and bit it. It was a curiously shaped thumb, thin and narrow like an extra finger, with no curve in the first joint. She bit it and sucked it slowly, turning it around in her mouth like a baby with a comforter. "You're awfully tall," she said. Then she giggled with secret merriment. Then she turned her body slowly and lightly and without lifting her feet. Her hands dropped limp at her side. She tilted herself towards me on her toes. She fell straight back into my arms, and I had to catch her or let her crack her head on the tessellated floor. I caught her under her arms, and she went rubber-legged on me instantly. I had to hold her close to hold her up. When her head was against my chest, she screwed it around and giggled at me. "You're cute." She giggled. "I'm cute too." I didn't say anything. So the butler chose that convenient moment to come back through the French doors and see me holding her. It didn't seem to bother him. He was a tall, thin, silver man, 60 or close to it, or a little past it. He had blue eyes as remote as eyes can be. His skin was smooth and bright and moved like a man with very sound muscles. He walked slowly across the floor towards us, and the girl jerked away from me. She flashed across the room to the foot of the stairs and went up them like a deer. She was gone before I could draw a long breath and let it out. The butler said tonelessly, "The general will see you now, Mr. Marlowe." I pushed my lower jaw up off my chest and nodded at him. "Who was that?" "Miss Carmen Sternwood, sir." "You ought to wean her. She looks old enough." He looked at me with a grave politeness and repeated what he had said.